If you've heard about Minnesota lately, you've probably heard we're either a lawless fraud haven or a state under federal siege. I live here. I was born in Minneapolis, spent years in Uptown, and now I'm raising 4 kids on land near Lake Superior. I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm here to tell you what I see. As a father, a business owner, a taxpayer, and a follower of Christ who's watching his state become a worldwide laughingstock. This is the Minnesota I know, and this is what's actually happening. I grew up in the Twin Cities. State fair every summer, apple orchards in the fall, skating and hiking in the winter. The whole Scandinavian, German, Minnesota nice thing. I lived it. Lake cabins with family, fishing with my dad. The culture here is quiet, hardworking. You help your neighbor shovel when the snow gets too deep. You don't ask who they voted for. When my wife and I had kids, we wanted to raise them as immersed in God's creation as possible. So we moved north, bought a forest plot in the highlands near Lake Superior. But I still have roots in Minneapolis. I lived in Uptown for years. My band had a practice space in the Griggs Midway building in St. Paul, the same building that's now at the center of fraud investigations that were ignored for years. I know the city. I know the people. So when I see my state in the national news, for all the wrong reasons, it's personal. This isn't politics to me. It's home. So let me lay out what's actually happening. There's a lot of noise out there and not a lot of signal. First, the fraud is real. The Feeding Our Future case alone was hundreds of millions of dollars stolen from programs meant to feed hungry kids. People have been convicted. Some are going to prison for decades. That's not political spin. That's documented fact. There are ongoing investigations into other programs: childcare, medical transport, housing assistance. Investigators like David Hoke spent years documenting this. Bill Glahn and Elliot Engen raised alarms that were ignored. Nick Shirley's video finally broke through the noise and forced action. Now, whatever you think of his methods, we wouldn't be dealing with this at the federal level without it. The scale is staggering. We're talking billions, and it's now evident that the vast majority of those involved are from the Somali community. Though it's also clear that people in government enabled it, ignored it, or looked the other way for political reasons. I've spent 25 years building a business, paying taxes, playing by the rules. I'm raising 4 kids to earn their own way. That's how I was raised. So when I see billions stolen from programs meant to help people who actually need it, single mothers, the disabled, working families barely getting by, that money is gone. And everyone who played by the rules gets left holding the bag. That's not just frustrating, it's corrosive. It makes people wonder why they bother. And that's exactly why the scale of this is so urgent. It doesn't just steal money, it betrays trust. And it's not just fraud. Last year, for the first time in the history of this state, there were shootings at high school graduations. 2 of them, Wayzata and Burnsville, within a week of each other. In both cases, the shooters were Somali. A father was shot in the head at his daughter's graduation. He survived, thank God. But this is what we're talking about when we talk about a breakdown in order. Now, here's what breaks my heart. 2 people have been shot and killed by federal agents in Minneapolis this month. Thousands of additional enforcement officers are in the Twin Cities. And the protests we're seeing, there's evidence these are not spontaneous. The tactics, the coordination, the deliberate use of whistles and noise, which we know from research overloads cognition, spikes stress hormones, and elevates aggression. Someone benefits from that chaos, and it's not the people in the streets. The protesters are being used as pawns, just like young people sent overseas to fight unjust wars. The goal is destabilization, division, and it's working. The agents in these situations, they're someone's dad, someone's mom, someone's husband or wife. They're making split-second decisions in chaos that someone else engineered. The protesters, most of them genuinely believe they're doing the right thing. They're being manipulated. And the honest, sincere immigrants, some of whom are Somali, who came here to build real lives, they're now associated with a scandal they had no part in. That's not fair to them either. All of these things are true at once, and pretending otherwise doesn't help anyone. So where does that leave us? Here's what I actually believe, and I'm not going to hedge, because I think hedging is part of the problem. I believe in legal immigration. I believe America has been and should be a place where people can come, work hard, build a life, and contribute. That's the story of this state. Scandinavians, Germans, Irish, and yes, more recently, Somalis and others who came here looking for something better. But I also believe that immigration has to be lawful. And I believe that if you come here legally or otherwise, the goal should be to become self-sufficient, to contribute, not to be dependent on social services indefinitely. I don't say that with hatred. I say it because I believe in human dignity, and dependency is not dignity. Fostering dependency is not an act of love. Every person is a unique, beautiful creation of God. Every person deserves the chance to build something with their own hands. When I see fraud at this scale, and I don't care who's committing it, I see money being stolen from the people it was meant to help. That's not compassion, that's theft. And calling it out isn't hatred, it's honesty. My great-uncle Don, my grandparents, that whole generation presented an example to me that sometimes seems extinct. Quiet conviction, uncompromising integrity. They didn't talk about their values, they lived them. I see glimmers of that in my kids, and I have hope for a future where that spirit is rekindled, a society that can be driven, productive, even-keeled, just, and loving all at once. I also don't support sanctuary policies, not because I hate anyone, but because I believe in the rule of law. Economist Walter Williams said, "The only kind of equality that is consistent with personal liberty is equality before the law." A sophisticated society, the kind I want to leave my kids, runs on trust. Trust that the rules apply to everyone. Trust that the systems work. When that breaks down, everyone suffers, especially the vulnerable. And here's what frustrates me the most. I can't say these things without someone assuming I'm full of hate. I'm not. I have a friend in Germany I was just talking to about this. We disagree on some things. We agree on others. Neither of us thinks the other is evil or imbecilic. We each have something to learn from the other. That used to be normal. I'd like it to be normal again. The Minnesota I know isn't the one in the mass media. It's not a talking point. It's not a political football. It's the neighbors who show up with a chainsaw when a tree takes out your fence. It's the guy at the hardware store who spends 20 minutes helping you find the right plumbing fitting. It's 10,000 lakes and the people who've built quiet lives around them. It's summer evenings that seem to last forever, and winters that make you earn the spring. Most Minnesotans aren't on X or Facebook screaming at each other. They're coaching Little League. They're clearing snow for the elderly neighbor. They're going to church on Sunday and trying to raise decent kids. That Minnesota is still here. It's just not loud enough to make the news. Part of why I moved out here, remote, endless forest, off the beaten path, was to build something sovereign, not to escape, but to have enough distance from the noise to think clearly. I'm teaching my kids that systems fail. That's just reality. And when they do, you need to be able to take care of yourself and your community. I'm teaching them that you can be angry about injustice without dehumanizing anyone. That you can want accountability without wanting cruelty. That every person you meet, regardless of where they're from, is a unique, beautiful creation of God and deserves to be treated that way. And I'm teaching them that Minnesota, the real Minnesota, not the one in the headlines, is still worth building in. If you're watching this from somewhere else, wondering what it's actually like here, it's complicated. It's painful right now. But it's home. And it's full of people who are a lot more thoughtful than the loudest voices would have you believe. This is Path and Principle. Thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.